Imagine a colossal flying fortress, not in science fiction, but patrolling Earth's upper atmosphere, able to unleash hypersonic strikes anywhere, anytime, completely outside the reach of today's defenses. This isn't a fantasy. It's the nightmare scenario posed by China's theoretical Luaniao space carrier. And if it ever becomes real, it will shatter global military balance as we know it. For decades, military planners have debated the ultimate high ground in warfare. First, it was the land, then the sea, and eventually the air. But what if the next battlefield isn't just above us, but in the near space? A place where air meets orbit. China's Luaniao concept, often described as a high-altitude space carrier, proposes precisely that. Its advertised capabilities read like a plot from a futuristic thriller. An unblinking eye and an unstoppable fist capable of deploying swarms of hypersonic armed drones, and even hosting weapons that can reach into space itself. If such a platform were to become operational, it wouldn't just be another piece of military hardware. It would fundamentally reshape air and space warfare, forcing every major power on Earth to scramble for new strategies, new technologies, and new ways to deter a threat that seems to bypass all existing rules. This isn't just about outspending an adversary, it's about a complete paradigm shift. A strategic upheaval that would demand immediate and profound reactions across technology, doctrine, and deterrence from nations like the United States, NATO, India, and Japan. The implications are staggering, and understanding them is crucial. Because this isn't just a technological marvel. It's a potential game changer that could redefine what global power truly means. At its core, the Luaniao is envisioned as a persistent, high-altitude platform, a silent sentinel that could loiter over any region of the world. Think of it as a mobile, self-sustaining military base thousands of feet above the ground, operating in a zone where conventional aircraft struggle and satellites are too high to provide continuous, dedicated coverage. From this vantage point, it wouldn't just observe, it would command. Its ability to deploy swarms of drones armed with hypersonic missiles means it could deliver prompt, precision strikes against targets across continents, all with virtually no warning. These aren't just any drones. These are hypothetical autonomous systems, possibly designed to overwhelm defenses with sheer numbers, each carrying weapons that fly many times the speed of sound. Crucially, the Luaniao is also described as capable of hosting space-reach weapons. This blurs the lines between air and space, making it not just an aerial platform, but potentially a node in a larger space-based warfare network. Together, these capabilities would give China a global prompt strike and surveillance tool that could bypass most current air defense envelopes, rendering them largely obsolete. No longer would targets be safe behind traditional missile shields or ground-based radar. The threat would come from above, silently and with incredible speed. This unprecedented capability would place immense pressure on the United States, NATO, India, Japan, and other allied nations. The immediate response would have to be a radical re-evaluation of their deterrence postures. Platforms like Luaniao could no longer be dismissed as mere aircraft. They would have to be treated as strategic assets, akin to nuclear bombers or even limited space-based weapons. This would necessitate establishing explicit red lines, clearly defining what actions involving such platforms would be considered escalatory or even acts of war. Alongside these red lines, robust crisis protocols would be essential. Imagine the international diplomatic firestorm if a Luaniao were to appear over a disputed territory or a sovereign nation's airspace. Without pre-established rules of engagement and communication channels, the risk of miscalculation and rapid escalation would be astronomical. The very presence of such a system would fundamentally alter the strategic calculus, demanding a new era of space and near-space arms control discussions. Or more likely, a rapid acceleration of military development by those who fear falling behind. The defensive implications are equally profound. Nations would be forced to develop entirely new layered defenses, reaching much higher into the stratosphere and near space than ever before. Current air defense systems, primarily designed to counter aircraft and ballistic missiles operating at lower altitudes or on predictable trajectories, would be insufficient. We're talking about a race to develop very long-range interceptors capable of reaching and engaging targets thousands of miles away and tens of thousands of feet up. High-power lasers capable of dazzling or physically disabling these platforms would become a priority. And the concept of co-orbital or near-space intercept drones, specifically designed to hunt down and neutralize platforms like Luanyao, would likely move from research labs to rapid prototyping. But the challenge doesn't stop at defense. The Luanyao is deeply tied to the broader Nantianmen concept, China's vision for integrated air, space, and counterspace roles. This means its operation wouldn't be isolated. It would rely on a complex network of ground control, communication satellites, and other supporting infrastructure. This makes the ability to counter Luanyao not just about shooting down the platform itself, but about dismantling its entire support ecosystem. Rivals would inevitably accelerate their own counterspace programs. This includes developing advanced jamming capabilities to disrupt its communications and command and control, dazzling systems to blind its sensors, and sophisticated cyber options to compromise its operational integrity. Beyond that, physical kill options for satellites and near-space platforms, currently a highly sensitive and destabilizing area of military development, would likely see a surge in funding and urgency. The goal would be clear: ensure that disabling such a carrier and its support network is feasible in any high-end conflict, thereby negating its supposed invincibility. Perhaps the most certain outcome of an operational Luanyao would be a dramatic acceleration of an arms race in high altitude and space platforms. The U.S. and its allies are already studying high altitude and near space systems, often as a way to backstop vulnerable satellites or provide persistent surveillance. A real Luanyao would not only validate this niche but would also turn it into a full-blown military imperative. You would see competing stratospheric carriers, perhaps massive airships or solar-powered pseudo-satellites, designed to mirror or counter China's capabilities. There would be a surge in the development of very large, high-altitude, long-endurance hail drones, and potentially even orbital mothership ships capable of deploying their own drones or inspector craft. This isn't merely about developing similar systems. It's about ensuring a symmetrical capability to deter and, if necessary, defeat such a threat. This would ignite a furious wave of research and development across several key areas. First, hypersonic strike and defense R&D would explode. If China fields a platform capable of launching hypersonic weapons from near space, every other major power would need both the means to deliver their own hypersonic retaliation and, critically, the defenses to intercept such attacks. Second, the development of very large unmanned carriers, whether they be airships, massive solar-powered drones, or pseudo-satellites, would gain unprecedented momentum. These would not just be for surveillance, but for carrying increasingly complex payloads, including their own offensive and defensive systems. Finally, autonomous swarm combat systems, like China's described 88 Xuannu drone model, would become a central focus. If the Luanyao can unleash hundreds of intelligent, networked drones, then other nations will need similar capabilities to counter them, leading to a dizzying escalation in artificial intelligence and robotic warfare. The goal isn't just to keep up, but to avoid falling behind in a future where the sky is no longer the limit, but just another battlefront. The operational and regional consequences of a fully functional Luanyao would be immediate and profound, particularly in critical strategic zones. Imagine an operational Luanyao sitting perpetually above or near Taiwan, the South China Sea, or key U.S. military bases in the Indo-Pacific. Such a presence would heavily complicate access and basing for any opposing force. Adversaries would be forced to completely rethink their operational strategies. They would have to plan to disperse their forces, moving them constantly to avoid being targeted. hardening infrastructure, making airfields, ports, and command centers resilient to repeated high-precision strikes would become an urgent priority. And perhaps most challenging, armies and navies would have to find ways to hide logistics, supplies, and movements from continuous, high-altitude intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, ISR. Every truck, every ship, every troop movement would potentially be under the unblinking eye of the Luanyao, making surprise and stealth nearly impossible. The same pressure would apply globally if such a platform could reposition itself across the world. Over the Indian Ocean, the Middle East, or even Europe, regional militaries would be forced to assume a persistent overhead threat in any high-end conflict. This isn't just about facing an occasional reconnaissance aircraft. It's about knowing that at any moment, from miles above, an undetectable threat could launch a devastating strike. This constant threat would demand a complete overhaul of military readiness, training, and deployment strategies, forcing nations to operate under an entirely new paradigm of persistent vulnerability. Beyond the military hardware, the very existence of a near-space carrier with orbital-reach weapons would create a seismic shift in legal, political, and alliance dynamics. It fundamentally blurs the line between what we traditionally understand as an aircraft and a space weapon. This ambiguity would intensify long-standing debates over the weaponization of space. The international community, already grappling with the challenges of regulating space, would likely see urgent calls for new treaties or norms to govern these hybrid platforms. However, the history of arms control suggests that while calls for new rules emerge, nations also find quiet workarounds and gray zone deployments, exploiting any legal or technical ambiguity to gain an advantage. This could lead to a period of intense legal and diplomatic maneuvering, potentially creating new forms of Cold War competition in the near-space domain. Politically, the threat posed by Luanyao would undoubtedly deepen existing military alliances. Organizations like NATO, AUKUS, Australia, UK, US, and the burgeoning security cooperation between the US, Japan, and South Korea would likely accelerate and deepen their technological cooperation. This would focus particularly on missile defense systems capable of intercepting advanced threats, enhanced space domain awareness to track and understand such platforms, and the joint development of their own high-altitude systems. This would make block-to-block technological competition even sharper, potentially leading to a new kind of space race that is less about reaching the moon and more about dominating the strategic high ground just above our atmosphere. It's a world where collaboration among allies becomes not just beneficial, but absolutely essential for collective security. Now, it's important to ground this discussion in reality. Practically, experts still see Luanyao as far beyond current engineering capabilities. The challenges of building a stable, persistent, weaponized platform in near space are immense, ranging from power generation and structural integrity to propulsion and thermal management. But if something even close to its advertised capabilities ever flew, the main consequence wouldn't be China achieving a permanent, unchallenged superweapon status. Instead, it would be a ferocious rush by other major militaries to build their own high-altitude and space-linked strike platforms, and, just as crucially, the means to shoot down any adversary's equivalent. This wouldn't be an end to competition, but a dramatic acceleration of an airspace arms race, pushing technological boundaries further and faster than ever before. The skies and the space just beyond would become the next great arena of global power struggle. If you want to understand more about the future of warfare and how global powers are preparing for it, make sure to check out our next video right here.